1, 2, 3.
Step right up. Step on a crack, break your mama's back. Step on a dime, you'll be here for all time.
Hello, and welcome to X-Rated, the X-Men animated review show. We won't keep you for all time. We'll keep you for a little while.
Oh my
It'll
god,
be a
that guy
great-
was annoying. The most annoying character in the history of kids animation.
You love Bender.
I do not, sir. I love Futurama's Bender. I do not love this Bender.
I think you love this Bender.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, I I am your host.
He's stealing time.
It's not stealing your time if you agreed to be here. I'm Mr. Skelhorn, of course, and with me, as always, is my co-host.
Are you talking to me?
I wish, buddy. No, I'm talking to Typhoid Maya.
That's right.
Which, thanks for stealing one of my X points with your name.
Oh, there's going to be lots of overstep on the X points, I think, on this episode. Lots of cameos.
Oh, yes, indeed.
Who else is here? What aren't you telling me?
Well, that's a good question, Bender. Andre, would you like to introduce our guest for this evening?
Sure.
Just when I thought this place couldn't get any weirder.
Well, we are very privileged to have with us comic artist Adam Gorham. Does currently doing work for Darth Vader. Are those books currently still coming out, or is that the last run?
They're currently coming out. Yeah.
All right, Darth Vader for Marvel, the Godzilla books, the Godzilla versus books over on IDW. I think you're currently doing the Turtles Stranger Things crossover. Is that something that's current?
I'm doing some covers for the Turtles Stranger Things crossover. Yes.
Yeah, I saw you working on them at East Coast Comic Expo. So.
Yeah,
I'm always hesitant to mention things I see artists working at conventions because one time, like years ago, I went to the. I don't want to get him in trouble, but I went to the Montreal Comic Expo, and Tom Fowler was there, and he had pages on his table from the Venom book he was working on, like original art pages he was selling, and I was flipping through them, and I was like, this one hasn't come out yet. And he looks at me and he goes, shh, like that. So, yeah, I was like, all right. So, I don't want to get anybody in trouble.
that's one of the perks of meeting artists at shows, especially if they're working on work at the show. You can kind of get a preview of what they're working on.
Yeah, that one was awesome. That was like my first one where I really got to meet like a ton of cool like comic artists that, in person. Like I got to talk to Sergio Aragonés and Stan Sakai and Ty Templeton.
Sergio Aragonés?
I gave him a copy of my little indie comic I made at the time. He told me to come back the next day, and him and Stan both read it and then talked to me about it for like an hour and gave me tips and pointers and all this sort of stuff. It was like the sweetest thing ever. I was like, they took time out of their day to actually do that, which is super nice. It was awesome. And I met Neil Adams too, which is super cool. So and like the first guy to draw Wolverine, Herb Trimpe, like is in the Hulk comic. I met a ton of cool comics. And like the thing is at those cons now, like all they have is like almost everyone's there to meet like Spike from Buffy or like one of those guys. And like I feel like the comic people, like the real comic people, there's never really huge lineups for them because everyone's in line to see Jack Harkness from Doctor Who or something. Like it's not about the comics as much. So if you're like a comic nerd like I am, I feel like you kind of get in there pretty easily to meet some of these people, and it was awesome.
I swear I saw some like Neil Adams sit at a table and no one go up to his table for 45 minutes.
Oh, I got him to sign my copy of Superman versus Muhammad Ali, which is pretty great. So
yeah, but did you try to knock him down an escalator?
No, I did not.
There you go. There you go.
All right, well, thanks for joining us, Adam. Yes, Adam is a very talented and amazing comic artist who we've had on I've had on my other podcast, but we are very. He mentioned during that show how much he had the reverence he had for this show. So when we were talking off mic, I mentioned that we do this, and he was interested in becoming a guest. So as he has a big affinity for cable, we thought we'd try to make it one that has cable featured in it. And this 4-parter in this episode particularly has quite a bit of Cable. So
yes,
yeah, and we had Lauren Spain
Made by former guest of the show, exactly.
Yeah, we had Lauren Spain on the show recently, who is the voice of Cable as well, which is pretty cool. So
People of the show.
Yeah, he was very, very.
Yeah, he's a cool guy. He's a really cool guy. We're gonna beer someday.
Yeah, a lot of good stories and a great storyteller, and just like a super charismatic dude. Like just the kind of guy you'd want to hang out with.
Like he broke into like a poem that lasted a good 3 or 4 minutes.
That he wrote like 20 years ago or something. And I'm still amazed. I'm still amazed he was the Native American character in that Pink Floyd music video. That was like one of his first credits, which is amazing.
Learn to Fly, was it?
Learn to Fly, yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
You know what? We're here to review season 4, episode 21 of the X-Men animated series. Beyond Good and Evil Part 4, End and Beginning.
This is definitely the last of the seasons in which we have 21 episodes in them.
You know what they say? Every new beginning is another beginning's end. Or how does that song go? Another new beginning's end.
Very nice.
So it's closing time. Written by.
Are you quoting Semisonic on this show? My God.
Yes. Quoted. This is a 90s show, Andre.
It is. That is certainly where my nostalgia lies.
Exactly. Written by Dean Steffen, who I don't think has written any episodes of this show before this one, but good job, Dean. And directed by Larry Houston, the unicorn of this show.
Davan's been trying to get him on for a while. But before we get into this, though, Adam, like, what are your memories of this show? Like, what are your favorite parts of the show?
Yeah.
Since you have a reverence for it, and you obviously it sits in that perfect nostalgia bubble in your head.
Well, it's been a while. Before watching this episode, it had been a couple of years since I revisited it. I think when I got Disney Plus and it was available, I gave it a go, and I can't remember how far I got into it, but it was really, really great. Like background noise as I'm working, and I, nobody else in the house appreciated it the way I do. But as much as it was nice enough to watch again, it was really just to more than anything, it rekindled memories of watching it on Saturday morning. And so there was like, a good stretch where I would set my VCR on Friday night to record Friday night's episode of Tales from the Crypt.
Oh, yeah, awesome.
And then on
I used to stay up too late and watch that too. And like my parents, if they'd known I was watching it, would not have been happy.
Yeah, exactly. If I recorded it and watched it Saturday morning before they were awake, easy done, right? So
nice.
I'd watch that, and then
just cartoons.
And I would chase it with cartoons, and so X-Men was like the big event on Saturday morning, and I'd like pull out all of my like Toy Biz figures and watch it. And so there's episodes that I remember well, some less so, but when the episode that we're reviewing, for instance, I had seen, obviously it's much later in the series run, and I had if you were to ask me point blank if I recalled the episode, I probably would have said no. But as I watched it, I was like, yes, I remember this. Yes, this is familiar. And then there were things that surprised me as I was watching it, like I had forgotten, we were just talking about it earlier, but I had actually forgotten what Cable's voice sounded like.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just different from what I might have recalled.
I always say it's very John Wayne. It sounds like someone doing a John Wayne voice.
Yes, like a futuristic cowboy, which is like fitting when you think about it, but it caught me off guard. Cable also has like my favorite line in this episode, but I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. But one of my favorite memories of this show is actually a memory of Apocalypse, and it's I think when he is first introduced in the series, and he has this great line where he shapeshifts out of somebody else, and they're like, "Oh, you're a mutant," and he tells them that he's as far beyond mutants as mutants are as far beyond them. Yeah. And as a kid, I was like, "That's writing."
He has one that Davan comments on a lot. That's like Like I am
And the rocks upon the eternal shore crash upon me and be broken.
Yeah, like that's like Shakespearean. It's so beautiful. And like in Apocalypse had a lot of great lines in the series.
Yeah, and so Apocalypse was always my favorite villain, like of the X-Men growing up. And you know, like I don't think he's a villain who necessarily holds up to scrutiny all that well, you know, like in terms of like, does he make sense? What is
I feel like they've done good work in that like regard recently in comics. Like during the Krakoan era, they've done a lot of work on Apocalypse, and it's kind of made me like the character a lot more.
Okay, I have not gotten into any of that stuff. I started out reading it when it was very new, and it was like appointment reading for me, but I fell off about after a year. And just before all of the X of Swords stuff. Anywho, but like, you know, Apocalypse in this show was my favorite villain for those reasons. Like he did come across as very Shakespearean, and he was like, you know, he was otherworldly. There was always and you know, there was always mystery surrounding him. What his motivations are, and what his plans were, and you know, he's like always shooting off into space in some crazy starship in the sky.
It's always shaped like an old pyramid or something. Like it's so funny.
Yeah, it was all so cool. And so yeah, I that's one of the things about the show that I remember most is him. But there's a lot of other stuff as well. And I think I probably know because I think, like, to a certain extent, the show did a fairly good job of adapting storylines in the very broad strokes. So, you know, like I realized later on that a lot of what I thought that I knew about X-Men comics actually came from the X-Men animated show. Yeah. And I remember when I was working on a New Mutants book, and I was talking with my editor about something. And I was like, oh, just, you know, like I mentioned something offhand, like something I thought I knew about the X-Men. And he was like, well, that's actually from the cartoon and not from the comics. And then the comics, I got schooled very quickly. And then I realized, like, yeah, I guess I've seen more episodes of the X-Men cartoon than I had read X-Men comics at that time.
Same with me.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, a lot of it is sort of defined in my head as like I run into that too, where I'm like, is that the origin I remember, or is that like from the show? Because like me and Davan were talking about how Beast originally became blue, and my memory of it, I think, is from reading like a kid's book that was like written to explain all the X-Men origins in these little short stories. And there's some big story about an experiment that he was doing on himself that turned into making him blue, but there's a different, like the comics had a different version, and then there's something else with something else. So yeah, it all gets mixed up in your head pretty easily. Yeah.
And I mean, like, they do a good job of streamlining a lot of these, like, you know, soap operatic storylines that, you know, like Claremont was weaving across years, right?
Yeah.
They managed to get it into, you know, either an episode or, like, I think at most like a 4-part storyline. I think like a season before this, they managed to do the whole Dark Phoenix saga.
Yeah.
The end of season 3.
Yeah, within 8 episodes, which is something, because
it's good. It's very good too.
Yeah, they even have their own.
Noticed.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
One thing we've noticed is like a lot of the best episodes of this series are the ones that are adapting some of the better comic storylines. Like the Days of Future Past was really good.
Yeah,
Phoenix stuff was really good. Yeah, I mean those are great storylines. So, but they're easy to mess up. The Fox movies messed up a lot of those storylines. But yeah, this show has been surprisingly good. I think.
I feel like animation, well, especially this time, because comics weren't taken super seriously by the world at large. It wasn't like there were multi-million-dollar comic hero movies coming out every other month, right? Like it was just you had this cartoon, the Spider-Man cartoon, the Batman cartoon, and that was pretty much it for like superhero stuff going on around this time period. Yeah. I mean, in movie-wise, all we had was Tim Burton's Batman movies and the Christopher Reeve Superman movies, which were like a decade behind them at this point. So, like, nobody was taking it that seriously, and certainly not enough that big-wig executives would
Fantastic Four 1990.
Oh, well, that cartoon. Yeah, and the Silver Surfer cartoon.
No, I'm talking about the movie.
Oh, the one that never got released by Roger Corman.
Yeah,
I've
it got
actually
released. I used to rent it at Hobble's Furniture Store when I was a little kid. It got released.
I've never well
video.
not it wasn't supposed it was only made so they could keep the rights. Like they didn't really intend on really like releasing it too much. Have you've seen it. Have you ever seen it, Adam?
I know of it. I've seen stills from it. I've heard the legend, and
it's as bad as you would expect it to be. It's quite bad.
I used to rent that and the Captain America movie from the same time.
Yeah. I watched that. I dubbed that on VHS and watched it a bunch.
I actually have the Blu-ray of it. They put it out a while ago, and I found it.
You have a Blu-ray of that Captain America movie.
You know what's the interesting fact about that movie is the actor in it is his last name Faulkner? His father was like William Faulkner. He's like
that's right.
Salinger. His father was J.D. Salinger.
His
name's Matt Salinger. Yeah. So I just find it so funny that J.D. Salinger's son is Captain America and like a really
overrated. Gotta say.
And like the Red Skull was Italian for some reason. It was just very weird.
It was a very weird
movie. Yeah. Oh, that's cool. It's funny because there like really, and this is just proving my point, I guess, that was kind of a desert of comic book stuff. Like you had that Generation X made for TV movie in like the early 2000s.
Yeah.
It really Matt Frewer in it.
It did. That was the only thing it had going for it. And that like the Dolph Lundgren Punisher movie, it didn't really go anywhere. That
was good too. The scene with him and Lou Gossett Jr. when they've got Punisher like arrested and stuff. That's a great scene.
That weird Doctor Strange movie from like the 80s that didn't really go over. Yeah,
I have a foreign import of the Dolph Lundgren Punisher. I used to love it so much.
It's good. It's not that bad.
The David Hasselhoff Nick Fury movie, like there's just all these weird.
The Fox TV movie event.
yeah. They had so many of those, but like there weren't executives that were like trying to come at you with like we need to do this in a movie or do that, which probably happened with most of those big X-Men movies. Probably the first two got away with it because they didn't expect them to be massive. They just did something with them and they became big. I mean, I still think X2 is probably the best X-Men movie by far, but that's my opinion. I don't know.
That's going to change soon enough. That's going to change.
You think so?
New segment called Some Explaining to Do. Now, Andre, the X-Goons were looking forward to our stories about our beers that we were going to have, and we were going to regale them.
Put me on blast here for this.
I am putting you on blast. Yeah. So why don't you explain to the X-Goons why we don't have any cool stories to tell them?
Well,
we hyped them up. Andre and I were going to meet for the first time since like a comic convention 15 years ago.
In person, yes. Well, the problem, number one, I think I deserve some credit because I made the effort to actually meet you to give you the stuff I was supposed to give you.
That's true, but you did basically drive to another country, which is Bayers Lake. That's fine.
I apologize, but
this is a '90s show. That's fine.
I was with a friend, and he wanted to get home early, and he had a kid he had to get home to, and so it changed my plans. I initially thought I was going into Halifax alone, but I wasn't. So I'm sorry. I'll be in Halifax again soon, and we can do it again.
It's not me I worry about. It's the X-Goons.
Oh, yes. I'm sure they're very upset that we didn't have dinner that day.
I think they were looking forward to the stories.
Oh, okay.
So why don't you... Well, actually, no. What am I talking about? I got to
play your last time on, yeah.
You bet I do.
Previously on X-Men.
Okay, this is going to explain everything perfectly.
It never does. It never works out. He always only plays like the last minute of the previous episode, and it never lines up.
Even a minute.
Move of all, the capture of the king, Professor Charles Xavier.
It actually did apply.
Pretty good,
time, which is rare. Well, it's only because it's a multi-parter. If it's like the last episode had nothing to do with this one, it makes no sense. But it does work. Man, that Apocalypse voice is so good. There's he's
so good in this episode.
He's so good.
John Colicos, man. I meant to mention this to Chris Britton when we were talking to him, but they had to go with him as the main villain. Like they made Apocalypse the main villain in this one just on the strength of John Colicos' voice. You know what I mean? And if he was still alive, they probably would have done the same thing.
Oh, he's just such a cool villain.
not such a great, is just as good of a voice. Chris Britton's sinister voice is amazing, but like just John Colicos has such gravitas in this character.
He looks cool. He sounds awesome. Like, and just the fact whenever like they go to throw down, he just grows like 4 times his size. And he's just like massive and just like it's so cool. I don't know. He's such an interesting character.
And he waxes poetic about time like 10 times in this episode. Like he's getting very poetic on the intricacies.
Well, they kind of like hammer home the fact that he's had 1,000 years hanging out in the void to like figure out the time palace that he found and all that sort of stuff. Although I do think they could have explained a little
some
more
questions about that. Yeah, I have some questions
because like if you didn't know if you don't know anything about comics and you watch the show, like your only experience with comics is this show, that revelation would mean nothing to you, you know. But we'll get to that.
Oh, the thing at the end. Well,
yeah. So yeah, the episode kicks off.
You don't have to though. It has nothing to do with the story.
No, but it wouldn't mean anything to you if you didn't know who that character was from the comics.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we see the X-Men coming to after the big swindle at the end of the last episode, where Angel gets very upset at the Cable's stupid plan didn't work out the way that he had intended. Angel's such a dink in this one.
This whole series, he doesn't come off very well. I mean, in the comics, he's kind of a spoiled rich guy too, so it's sort of the same thing. But he's super agitated in this.
I still think it's a good credit to the voice actor that this is the same voice actor that does Angel. We discovered last episode is the voice of Beetlejuice, the Beetlejuice cartoon. And those are like two very different voices. He does a really good job. Cable basically says, he's
the ghost with the most.
Yeah, he sure was. Cable basically says, like, screw you guys, we're getting out of here, and just throws a grenade down a hallway, like, without giving them any warning. He's like, we're blowing this place. He just throws it, and he's like, run.
Yeah, the X-Men do crazy shit all the time, but they just had no way, they can't comprehend Cable's tactics at all.
I just love, like, no warning whatsoever. Just throw the bomb, and then be like, now we got to run, instead of just being like, let's get out of here, and then throwing it.
Yeah.
So Cable basically now that we do discover, which I feel like was retconned because I don't remember them. Like I heard him say Xavier at the end of last episode, but I don't remember him saying Xavier and Wolverine, which they do show in the flashback because Wolverine is also missing, along with Xavier from the group. But we see the group run back to Grey Malkin and try to figure out what they're going to do from here.
He knew! Apocalypse knew your stupid plan before we made our first move!
Maybe. You got any other ideas? I'm listening.
He's such a whiny, like, he knew.
Sometimes I feel like now that we sort of know him, sometimes I feel like Lawrence Bain is just playing himself when he plays Cable.
There's a lot of tongue in cheek you can tell with him. I mean, he is a professional when it comes to acting, but like,
oh yeah,
but you can definitely, knowing his personality, you definitely see it in here. So basically, when Cable throws that grenade, he blows up the Apocalypse's chamber. But Apocalypse, then they head back to Grey Malkin to form another plan. But then we cut to Apocalypse watching this.
Oh wait, here's your
get out of here, because this little health spa is history.
That's all he says, and that everyone's supposed to interpret this health spa as history as run now or you're gonna die.
And like it's a future grenade, so like the people in the past wouldn't know what the hell that is. It's like if I pulled out an iPad now to someone from 10 years or 30 years, 20 years ago, they'd have no idea what the hell they're looking at, right? Like, what is that? So I just threw it on the floor and said, "Run."
This Cable just increasingly runs out of fucks during this 4-parter, and now he's just like, I don't care. He's like, I don't care. Like, I'm just gonna kill Apocalypse. Like. That's what I'm doing.
I mean, as far as like archetypes for heroes and characters go, the sort of space cowboy from the future that's just such a badass. It's such a cool character. Like Cable is by far, and Bishop to a lesser extent as well. They're almost very similar characters.
Really, Bishop's more of a cowboy. He's more of a cowboy.
Kind of.
Like Cable's trying to tap into
Soldier
the
Fortune
like
kind of
Terminator, the zeitgeist.
What was the
the John Connor thing,
What was the comic? So, like, right around the 90s, or, I guess early 2000s, when Grant Morrison was doing his X-Men run. Around the same time, there was a Cable series that came out. And it was, who was the artist? It was one of the... Oh, go ahead.
It was the one that was, it wasn't called Cable, right? It was
Igor Cordy was the artist. And
yeah, it was Soldier X or something like that. Was maybe that wasn't
it. Started out.
Yeah,
It started out as Cable, and then it later became Soldier X.
That's right. Yeah, I was thinking Richard Corbin for some reason in my head, but it wasn't his. But the art reminded me a bit of him.
Yeah. It was. I loved that series actually.
Yeah, I remember it being very cool, and just reading it because I worked at a store that sold comics, so I remember just reading it at the store. But
I worked at a comic shop at that time too.
Oh yeah. So it was like a hobby store that sold comics, but that's where I got mine at, and that's when I kind of like got back into buying comics normally. Like I just had what I had as a kid and read them all the time growing up. But that was kind of my. That's like when John Romita Jr. and was drawing Spider-Man, and Mackie was writing it. I think Howard Mackie, and that's what I was reading a lot of that. But yeah, I remember. Was it Rissa? Was that the guy's last name? The artist?
No, Igor Corti.
Yes, that's right. I get it mixed up with. Is it Eduardo Risso? Risso?
Eduardo Risso.
Yeah. Sometimes too. So. But yeah, so we see Apocalypse says it doesn't care that his little health spa has been destroyed because now that he is outside of time, he doesn't need it anymore.
He doesn't need his Lazarus chamber.
It is,
yeah. We did reference
it is
that
funny that he
episode.
calls it a health spa just because Apocalypse is there, just like chilling out and recharging.
Yeah, and but when he does, because when they're in the past, so it was like old school Egyptian Apocalypse. Like that was the one that Mystique was sort of looking at as. Which is cool because
I would have enjoyed that design more growing up. Like I wasn't a big Apocalypse fan growing up either because I didn't really like the design. It didn't seem to fit with this ancient kind of character because it was such a few. Like they explain that he has all this celestial technology and stuff, but like the design just never really worked for me, and I didn't really like his MacGuffin hand where he could just kind of like have any power whenever he wanted it. That kind of like, but the way that I go back to that Krakoan stuff, like in the Excalibur series, they really, and it's funny you ducked out at X of Swords. That's when they really developed his character. X of Swords is pretty.
They
much
do a
all
lot
about
with him in that one. Yeah, I just started reading it a little bit on Kindle Unlimited, but I think I might. I'm going to see how much the Marvel Unlimited is, or the Marvel, whatever that one is, because it seems like
is that the one where Dave Cutler's has Dave Cutler's Cosmo series on?
Yeah, and apparently Dave said
if
you don't mind waiting a couple of weeks, you'll like every new comic that comes out is on it, and I don't mind. So I usually have to wait a couple of weeks to get to the comic store anyway. So I'll still buy the comics I want to buy, but this will give me access to everything, even the things that I'm mildly interested in, but might not want to, just purchase. So it'll be cool to have access to that.
I want to say, like, Apocalypse is, I've always liked him, but he's always been a villain that's constantly being reinvented. Like every there's always in X-Men runs, it eventually you get an Apocalypse arc, and there's like a new sort of spin on him, and there's been some good ones, but I think I remember reading that when he was introduced in X Factor, you see he's a shadowy silhouette in the issue that he's introduced, because they didn't know he was a placeholder villain. They didn't know what he was going to be just at that point. And I think who wrote, I forget who was writing that.
Louise Simonson was writing it at the time.
Okay, and if I'm remembering correctly, the plan was to make him the Daredevil villain, the Owl. But
really?
Oh, yeah, really? Yeah. I had not heard that.
And
wow.
But like having undergone, he had leveled up some in terms of villainy. But wow. I remember reading that it was like going to be, they were going to use the Daredevil villain, the Owl. Yeah, so that's
but he's in the final panel of this one where he's just a shadowy figure.
Yeah. So as of that issue, they were like, maybe the Owl.
And they're like, no. By the time the next issue comes out, they're like, no, he's this guy.
Yeah, exactly. So they had figured it out by that point. But I remember reading that and thinking, like, that's nuts. And but
it's so weird when you read those stories. Like I remember I was reading, because during the pandemic, I had all the volumes of Fables. I never read it before, so I went and read it all the way through.
Yeah.
And the whole thing is like everyone's scared that the adversary is going to follow them into the real world. And apparently, the original plan for the adversary was going to be Peter Pan. He was going to be the adversary that they're all scared of, and they were going to have this side story about how Captain Hook was like actually a good guy trying to stop him. I mean, if you think about Peter Pan, he's like kidnapping kids, taking them to another world. Like if they want to grow up or they age, they like in the comics, it's sort of, or in the original book, it's sort of implied that whenever the Lost Boys start to grow up, he just kills them. because there's no room for adults in this world. So like they really play him out to be a major villain, but they couldn't get the rights because they didn't go into public domain quite yet. They're off by like 5 years or something. So he ended up changing it to Geppetto, which actually worked really well. But like it's crazy when you structure everything to go one way and then you have to like pivot really hard right the next.
Yeah.
Especially in a comic like that where it's like the next week they're like, all right, not the owl, make up someone new. Give him a generic name like Apocalypse or
Geppetto,
Armageddon or something.
Yeah. You know? Well, it's like from the outset.
Her, you pile of dog puke.
All right. So
when I saw that, I was thinking like, not your best, Wolverine, not your best.
He's got some good singers in this series, but
he does have some good singers for sure. They do. As the series
fucking
goes
piece
on,
of gutter trash is a favorite.
So Apocalypse is kind of monologuing amongst all his telepaths that he's collected. We see quite a who's who of telepathic characters here.
Yeah.
I have let you live to witness the obliteration of all you hold dear.
Yeah, and that's always the villain. Like, why not just kill him? Like, why do you need to show
why
off
do you
to
care
Wolverine while you rewrite his reality?
He's worked so hard on this thing. He wants to show it off.
That's fair. I mean, he spent like 1,000 years outside of time building this time chamber, or like working within this time chamber and figuring out its secrets.
Yeah.
But as we discover, Wolverine has been kidnapped and is chained up. Apparently, he leaped into the portal when Apocalypse grabbed Xavier, and they captured him. So he's sort of monologuing amongst all of these interesting cavalcade of characters, some of which we've seen before, some we haven't, that are all in stasis.
This is one of the things that I always loved about watching this show was whenever there was an Easter egg or cameo to pick up on, like
there's a lot of them.
Yeah, I remember. Like, whenever they would go through, like, if Xavier was searching somebody's memories, and you would see, Deadpool
like
or
Omega Red,
or just various things like that. And
Deadpool showed up once or twice. Like Maverick was the one that I always thought was cool until he actually showed up eventually. But like those sort of characters are cool.
Maverick's always that character that people forget that they can't place him. You know what I mean?
Well, I was surprised to learn he was Australian, isn't he? Is that what he? Because his voice.
No, he's German.
German. Yeah, I never knew he was German. So yeah.
Is he still around? Did he become Agent X or something?
He became Agent Zero.
Agent Zero. Right.
Yeah, it's hard.
Maverick's cool.
Yeah,
Maverick's cool. I agree. I like luck powers. Luck powers are cool.
He always reminded me of that. Remember that like one-off Spider-Man villain / anti-hero Solo? That was just like the guy with the big guns that he could teleport was his power. But he almost kind of struck me as a Maverick ripoff because he just had big guns and teleported a lot, which is kind of Maverick's thing, wasn't it?
Huh. I actually do not know that character.
Oh, he had like reddish. He always wore a full.
He had his own book.
Suit. Yeah, very briefly.
With like a brown kind of mask.
And like there's that Paladin character that was kind of the same. He was like, he had the purple and gray costume.
Oh, Paladin, from Captain America?
Yeah, I think he was always like a gun for hire kind of guy, but like not a bad guy per se, just a dude with loose.
He was always one of the stories in Marvel Comics Presents. There was always a Paladin story.
They always had him in there. So he's monologuing and basically he does reveals this whole plan to Wolverine here, which is actually no, we don't get to that point yet. So he's basically just
I will reveal my entire plan.
He's basically all the pieces are in place.
Made you look. Made you look.
So I got ahead of us there.
It's quite all right. So Beast and Cable come up with that when Professor X feared that he might get captured, so he put a little probe on himself that would allow them to track him. So they're using the Gray Malkin computer with the Cerebro to track Xavier, and they're having trouble syncing onto him because I don't know what kind of computers they had in the 90s, but this is some pretty high tech shit. That computer's like Xavier is outside of time. Like the computer can tell that.
Gray Malkin is celestial technology. Cable.
That's fair, I guess.
I think Beast is he's on the X Mansion's computer.
Yeah, Cerebro. Yeah.
His Beast is in the X Mansion, and Cable's on Gray Malkin.
Yes, that's right.
And so whatever Beast is looking up is an Earthbound computer.
Oh,
But
okay.
I
Well, that's
they're
impressive.
linked. They linked the two of them, and I think they're looking at the same thing. So Davan might
Right.
be right. It might be because it's through Gray Malkin's computer.
This
That would
shows
make more
Gray
sense.
Malkin can do that.
Yeah, because it
shows
does say
too
Gray
clever
Malkin's
for me.
computer is called Professor.
they
Which
don't say
is,
that.
I've noticed in this too, is actually voiced by the Professor Xavier guy. So that's cool.
Yeah, that is
It
pretty
should
neat.
have been.
So we see a bunch of what do you call MacGuffins, which are just different devices that Apocalypse has around as part of this ritual. They do have that really great. There's like one single frame where he's holding the little sphere, and he's got this like.
I have that.
Do you have that picture where he's like?
Yeah, I think so.
It's probably one of the coolest little like. There's one where it's like right on his face, and he's like sneering.
Oh, so,
it's all right if you don't have it.
I have him big there.
Yeah, no, it's all right.
Yeah.
But this orb thing he's holding is part of the part of his plan, which he now explains to Wolverine. Essentially, I think he's explaining to Wolverine now what he's going to do, right?
Oh yeah.
No, not quite yet. No.
Time.
He just
is this where he's soliloquying about time?
Not quite. No, not yet.
Motion, and motion and thought are unity.
Yeah, which this whole thing about how telepaths secretly control time because of them being telepaths.
Okay, yeah.
It's a bit of a stretch for me, but I'll let it fly because it's a pretty great episode. But before we get to that, we see Bishop.
No, it's the way he words it that's a problem. He says the problem with his plans have always been that there's this balance between good and evil. So to disrupt the balance between good and evil, he needs telepaths to like do a blast of telepathy. Like I just don't understand the connection between telepathy and the balance of good and evil.
He mentions
he doesn't
that
explain that
time is related to like telepaths, something to do with the nature of their power is like something to do with if you extend it in this place that they can use it to disrupt all of reality. Like, so it's very strange, but
it's weird. Yeah.
Regardless, we see Bishop, who's still, after the last 3 episodes, wandering around the Rainbow Bridge here in episode of time and being angered by Bender, who just keeps showing up. Bender explains that he may have created this place. He kind of forgot, and that he's almost a custodian now. We're just cleaning up time because it gets dirty over the years. So essentially, he built this axis of time.
I take care of things. You know, a little dusting, an occasional mop. You mean you're the janitor? Please. I prefer the term custodial engineer.
He's a custodial engineer.
And he also, just before that, said he built this place, which means obviously he's more powerful than just being a janitor. You know, like he's like, I think I built this place. I don't quite remember. But I like when he's like,
my questions are involved with him and Apocalypse.
Well, and then he's like like when he's showing that he's a custodian, he's like sweeping, and then he just like picks a hole up out of the ground, like, and then sweeps the dust under it and closes it. Like that little stuff's kind of cute and fun. And the character I liked more in this episode, I know he's just supposed to be a goofy, like, you know, nothing really, but some of the stuff he says, a lot of the
things were better in this episode.
But when you get the vibe that there's more to him than him just being some weird extra dimensional imp that's bothering Cable, when it seems like he actually has something to do with the creation of this place. And his dialogue got a little less goofy and a little more like there's something behind it, which is what made him cooler to me anyway, or at least more interesting.
You spoke of creating an alternate future in which mutants would rule, as I have always dreamed.
And you were fool enough to believe me.
About there, right?
Not quite, almost.
Okay.
So Magneto's basically like, when am I going to get my wife and kids back? You know, which is what Apocalypse had promised him. So Apocalypse
never believe somebody if they tell you they're going to give you your dead wife and kids back. Like
that's always
like,
that always leads
like
somebody to folly. Yeah, always.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, grief is a powerful thing, and if you can prey on someone to get to use them for what you want, sure. But it's always like it's how they always get the villain that's not quite a villain fully to go along with the other villain. It's always something like that, because that villain always has a tragic story, and then there's some worse villain that's like, hey, I can fix that tragic story for you if you help me do this terrible stuff over here. And then they always go so far, but then turn at the last minute and help the good guys because it's further than they want to go. It's like
you had so many to choose from. Who's going to turn on him? Is it going to be Magneto? Is it going to be Sinister? Is it going to be Mystique? He has so many people working for him.
Sinister seems to have no real dog in this fight, like as far as turning on him. But
yeah, he's chilling.
This is where Apocalypse reveals his whole plan. So all the telepaths sort of go out and are all circling like the beam of light that's coming out of the axis. And when Magneto kind of asks him what's going on, this is where he explains it all. The telepaths have some connection because of their abilities to time, and that if you can exploit it here in the Nexus, you can use it to reset time, destroy all of reality essentially, and then rebuild it in your own image, which is what he wants to do. So that sounds like a lot of work to me, doesn't it? Like rebuilding all of reality in your own image.
I'm sure Apocalypse is up to the task.
But wouldn't it be boring? Like it was just like there'd be nothing interesting because it'd be everything I designed. So wouldn't be surprised by anything.
That's every Apocalypse plan, is that his ultimate goal doesn't sound that exciting.
I guess if you're an ultimate narcissist, the world of you does sound pretty good, I suppose.
Yeah. Also, I think like this scheme of his reminds me a lot of like the Dark Tower. Stephen King's Dark Tower. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so like
I haven't read it all. I've been meaning to. It's one of the things I've been meaning to do soon. So it's it'll be coming soon. Well, no, go ahead. You're not going to ruin it for me. It's fine.
Well, just there's similarities with that and going on in there, but it makes me wonder which preceded which. It'd be interesting to see.
Ooh,
this series or the Dark Tower?
Well, the first book definitely came out before this.
Well, yeah, I mean there were huge gaps between each book, but I think that
because Wizard in the Glass I remember reading when I was a kid, and that would have been probably around this time. But I think it was an older book at that time.
There were many years between Wizard and Glass and the fifth book. He didn't start writing the last three until after his car accident, where he was nearly killed. And
because that plays into the book, does it not?
It does play into the book, but he he wrote a book called Hearts in Atlantis, which was adapted into a movie, and the movie actually stays fairly faithful to the book, but in the book is a stealth dark. It turns out in the end it's like a stealth Dark Tower novel.
Oh, really? Awesome.
Yeah. So like Anthony Hopkins' character is a psychic in the film. He's a psychic on the run from the CIA, who the government wants him to be using his powers in the efforts in the Cold War. And
is it because all his books tentatively sort of connect? So is it the same group that like the Firestarter people are running from? I feel like that was a connection. Yeah.
So like, and so in the book, it's not the government. It's the group working for the Crimson King.
Oh, cool.
And they want him for his powerful psychic abilities.
Oh, right.
Because it turns out that they're rounding up all these powerful psychics and forcing them to use their powers to break down the beams of space and time.
Oh my God, that's like this exact same
exactly
story.
Like this.
Yeah, and they all the beams connect to one central structure, the Dark Tower.
Yeah.
So when I was watching this,
they're probably doing an homage to Stephen King, if anything.
But when did they get to that point? Because that book's like that movie was like early 2000s, wasn't it?
Hearts in Atlantis is, I think, like either a late 90s book or an early 2000s.
Oh, wow.
So I wonder if like Stephen King binged X-Men after his accident.
That'd be amazing if he did.
I always assumed Stephen King was a listener of this show.
In one of the books, he describes...
The movie came out in 2001, so the book would have had to come out earlier than that, obviously.
Yeah, in one of the books, there's these robot writers that he describes as looking like Dr. Doom. So he's a Marvel dude.
Oh, wow. He actually says Dr. Doom in the book.
That's right, he does.
Right. So Hearts in Atlantis was a novella in it was based on one of the short stories in Hearts in Atlantis book called Low Men in Yellow Coats.
Yeah.
Oh, his novellas are his best stuff.
When was that published?
I think 99.
What? We got him.
Yeah, there you go.
No.
Got him. Got you, King. We figured you out. You're ripping off X-Men.
Send Bleeding Cool another message, Andre. We got to scoop.
I will. We made it on the Bleeding Cool site because Lawrence Bain said in our when we talked to him that he was in the new season, but that hadn't been announced yet.
Oh.
So we managed to scoop on there somehow. Decorated. That was kind of cool. But so Apocalypse has this grand scheme. He's going to undo all of reality, rebuild it in his own image, blah, blah, blah. Magneto, of course.
Oh, I got that.
Aspects of a single power that is beyond comprehension to all but myself.
Oh yeah, that's where I was like, you ever heard of Kang? But then like this episode explains that. So this episode really is pretty tight. Yeah.
So at this point, Magneto's realizing, well, this doesn't seem like a plan that's going to bring my wife back. I'm going to destroy all of reality and then supplement it with the one that I create. Where's my wife?
In all of your soliloquies, you haven't mentioned my wife once, Apocalypse.
Yeah,
I'm starting to get a bit of a.
they only injected the fact he had a dead wife in this season. Like that wasn't really a motivation for Magneto before at all. It was only the episode where we met Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, or we got their origin story that we learned that, right? So I always love, and Apocalypse is like Magneto's like, well, this is what I signed up for. And Apocalypse is like, you dare defy me? And it's like, you lied to him the whole time. It's not like he defied you. He didn't sign up for any of this.
Well, Magneto declares he's sinister. He's like, I knew he was full of it all along. I just wanted to go along with this until I could get the straight story out of him.
Mm-hmm. Which seems pretty far to go.
Recreating existence appealed to me.
Oh, I don't have the end of that quote. He's like, recreating existence appeals to me, but he's just like, yeah, then he goes, but defying Apocalypse would be like a fool's errand. You'd be crazy to do.
Well, we learned that in a second. So Apocalypse, after Magneto's like, well, screw you, Apocalypse attacks it. He has his horseman, one of his horsemen comes out. I believe it's Death because it's the one with the skull in his face.
So yeah, I love long dramatic nose. I'm probably gonna play that clip 4 or 5 more times.
That's way later. That's like during the fight, right? When he goes out the window.
Yeah, I just wanted to go no. Anyway,
it's a pretty great no, I gotta say. But so Death comes out and he's like, help me dispatch Magneto, and then Death attacks him, and turns out it's Mystique in disguise, which I always find funny because like Death has the scythe and it's electrified, and then the scythe hits Apocalypse and hurts him, and then the scythe and everything turns into Mystique. Like, did she just make a weapon out of her body that does something else?
It's a great question.
It is a great question.
If so, she's insanely powerful. I should just make Thor's hammer and run around using that.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, it's not going to do Thor's hammer stuff.
Well, I don't know.
Look like Thor's
that's
hammer.
Crazy spear or scythe stuff. But it's I do like watching her transform. It's pretty cool when they do that in the series.
Yeah.
So in this series, if something weird's happening, though, it's always Mystique. Like, there's so many times that like the character's just like, it's Mystique.
Actually, you weren't that far ahead of me. That happened right here. So during this fight where Mystique and Magneto start attacking Apocalypse, during the trading of beams, one hits Apocalypse and he goes through the wall and then falls down into time, I guess, because there's nothing stopping him. So he's just falling into the abyss. He's like, no, but then his horsemen fly out after him, so they're going to rescue him. And this is where Magneto tells Sinister, like, this isn't what we signed up for. He's going to undo all of time. And Sinister is already aware of that and quite happy to play along because he wants to remake time as well. He's like, this sounds fun to me, remaking existence. I mean, it does sound kind of great. If you could make reality whatever you want it to. You don't get old. You don't die. Your loved ones don't die. Life's a great, happy time. Doesn't that sound like a good time? I mean, maybe sacrificing the amount of lives that you would destroy in destroying all of reality would be, I guess, in theory, infinite. So you would create a lot of death. But if you're a narcissist,
as long as the new life looks like you.
His whole deal is genetic experimentation, right? Like eugenics.
Sinister.
Yeah. So I mean, like, I guess he's in it for the eugenics.
But he wouldn't have to experiment. If you're building reality from the ground up, whatever you were trying to get to with your genetic experiments, you could just create.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I guess he thinks like, I can just do eugenics from scratch.
I suppose, yeah. Which would probably be an ultimate dream of someone in his position. Because you're getting into the ground floor.
Yeah, because that's exactly it. Because the thing about Sinister is he likes to have the complete picture. Like they've written it into comics recently, where he has literally everyone on the planet's DNA. So
which is insane.
One would assume
he has 8 billion DNA samples hidden away somewhere.
Well, here's the thing, because he has hundreds of clones of himself. So one would assume there's a Sinister clone working at, like, maybe even thousands of clones of himself at this point. He's been doing it.
It'd have to be
years.
billions probably to get the
No, but think about it. So he has a clone of. Here's my theory. He has a clone of himself at every hospital. So every time somebody's born, he gets their DNA. That's the only way I could figure that he's.
But even
managed
just
to
the
do that.
storing and cataloging of that would be insurmountable. I guess we are in a world where magical things happen, so whatever. But
maybe Sinister is the guy behind all of these like Ancestry and 23andMe companies.
Yes, that's a great story.
exactly.
Actually, that'd be a great story.
See, that's why you work for Marvel and we don't.
Yeah, they gotta put me in these meetings, man.
That's right.
They do. Those getaways where they have nice resorts and stuff. They totally get it.
Well, every once in a while, someone in a horror comic or book or movie will do something where there's like a vampire that works for the blood bank or something. You know, getting on the ground floor. So it's very similar. You know, yeah. You know, he just like he's on the DNA thing. It's funny because a friend of mine, has like a very positive 23andMe story, which I just found out recently. He had a stepfather growing up. He didn't have a really close relationship with his biological father. He was always kind of a dink. And then he found out after doing a 23andMe test at Christmas this past year that the person he thought was his biological father is not his biological father.
Nice.
And he connected with the real guy who's like a sweetheart and a beautiful person who had no idea that he even existed. And now he has a wonderful relationship with him. The guy's like, he's like grandpa to his kids. They play. He sent me photos of them playing together, like with the kids. And
that's
awesome. Like, I was like, you have like one of the few like really positive, because most of those stories are like, if you find out it's not your real dad, you're like the dad you thought was your dad, who's in the other room with your mom, isn't your dad. You know, like that's a way worse story than like, you know, finding what you had never had.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's nice to hear.
Yeah, I'm like, you should really tell them your story. And you didn't know?
A shock. No. Sleeper Agent.
I got to start watching that show. I'm really behind.
There's like 2 episodes of it.
Oh, I guess I get on the ground floor. The one thing that really annoys me about it, maybe, and this is obviously a sidebar, maybe Adam has something to contribute to this, but the fact they use AI art for the intro. Yeah, a lot of people are like
comparing that controversy. Is it a controversy? I don't know. I'm confused about the whole thing.
I mean,
I find it controversial. I do. But it affects me.
Jobs.
Yeah. Like if you looked at the beautiful like end credit sequences to She-Hulk, which were all hand drawn by
those were awesome.
I know, like, and then they have this one where they just made a bunch of like just
nothingness.
Threw in a bunch of Skrull images and a bunch of Nick Fury or Samuel Jackson images and made these messed up AI art things that they just use for the credits. And they claim it's like, oh, well, it's supposed to be, you don't know what's real, what's not, and AI plays into that. So that's supposed to be part of it, but it also plays into the fact you didn't have to pay anybody to do that, which I think is what the main reason for this is.
Adam, as an insider, did they do it so they didn't have to pay somebody?
Well, Adam doesn't know.
I reckon they did.
Yeah. No, I respect that opinion. Yeah. I think he's on to something there.
But
you know, okay, I understand the controversy, I guess.
Because like, and all it does is like, it doesn't make anything new.
Good.
It doesn't make anything new. It just garbles together. Like if I said do art in the style of Chris Claremont, it just goes through all of, or not Chris Claremont, George Perez.
Yeah, it just
goes through all George Perez's stuff and makes something out of that. It cobbles something together from all the stuff that came before it. It doesn't create in a vacuum. Like it has to copy something.
Yeah. I contend it's not artificial intelligence, at least not.
No, it's not.
It's sci-fi sense. People keep calling it AI, but it's not. It's just like everything else, like Google or everything else. It's just content aggregation.
Well, it's been around for a long time. Like whenever you use, like if you contact Amazon to complain about a package, the thing you talk to is just one of these. It's not actually a person. You know, it's like, what's the problem? And then you answer that, and then it says, well, we're sorry to hear that. Here's this. It's just a bigger version of that. It's like what ChatGPT is and all that sort of stuff. So it's not like
I think we're still a fair ways from Skynet, fellas.
Well, maybe
I could be wrong.
Although, if I recall correctly, all that happened before now. Like, didn't the War of the Machines happen in like the early, like in like 2020 or 20? Because like when Terminator 1 came out, it was mid 80s.
Yeah, but with all these sequels, they've been delaying to like Judgment Day left and right.
They should have stopped with T2. T2 is when they actually I liked the third one. Not as much as the second.
The third one's not good. T2 is one of the best movies ever, though.
Yeah,
agreed. And T1 is fantastic too. I mean, those are both great movies. So basically, they get in a big fight with the Four Horsemen. Magneto, during the fight, Mystique tells Magneto to go on. She'll try to hold him off. He goes and helps. There's a great. Do you have this line? Which what
once was, now will never be. What will be, I shall determine.
Yeah, that's a great line.
Wasn't it?
Yeah. No, it wasn't. But it was when actually no, it's a little later on. It's not right here. And we'll do that. It's a little exchange between
was
Wolverine
it the
and Magneto.
small guy line?
No, the one where he's like, look at me helping.
Because they exchanged that earlier.
Like, later on during the fight they do, where he says like, look at me helping Magneto. What am I, Xavier?
Mm-hmm.
Or saving Magneto. What am I?
That's a great line.
And then later on, Magneto saves him and says, "Look at me helping you. What does that make me, an X-Men?" And then I like that little nod, especially knowing a little bit about what's coming in the X-Men season to come. That he kind of is sort of co-leading the X-Men, or at least trying to in some manner, is kind of fun. Yeah. So I do really like.
Line has layers though about Xavier helping Magneto. There's layers to that. That's a great line.
But Magneto's an interesting character in the show because he really only was a villain in the first season, and then after that, he kind of became like an anti-hero, sort of.
Like first season, Magneto was '60s Magneto, where he was just all about like commandeering nuclear
blowing up the world. But then it was just about. But then it became about getting mutants away from humans with Asteroid M and all that, and then and that blows up in his. He has almost like an existential crisis about what he really wants, and then sort of changes even more. But then comes back around with when Apocalypse promises his dead family will come back. But basically, so Wolverine,
the biggest character arc in this show, really.
So Wolverine gets
ending up with him leading the X-Men,
right? Wolverine gets in on the fight, and then Sinister and Gorgeous George shows up with it. Not Gorgeous George, Ruckus shows up with the screaming, which stops them all for a while before Grey Maul can bust through the wall. I forgot to mention earlier that when they discovered where Xavier was, Cable just took off and Grey Maul didn't wait for the rest of the X-Men. He's like, goodbye. And he just runs off and is gone. Leaves them all behind, and they have no time machines, so they have no way to follow.
Cable does not care by this episode.
You'd think he'd want some help, though. Like, you never know. Having other superpowered people in your corner would probably be good. Every time I see the Nasty Boy,
it's past Tyler's bedtime, Andre. He needs to get back. He needs to tuck Tyler in
for that super jacked, ridiculous son that seems like a kid, but also has the body of like a super shredded, like 30-year-old, but like a voice of like a 14-year-old. Dad, I don't know about fighting these monsters. Yeah. So Cable shows up on the proverbial horse to save the day. And we see Apocalypse like growing to Galactus sizes, basically, to attack him.
No, come on.
Well, Sentinel sizes for sure. He's pretty big.
Okay, that's better.
So the process is starting to work, where the psychics are starting to erase pieces of time, and you can see like little spheres that show different time periods disappearing. We see Mojo, we see the Savage Land. We see some other things. We eventually see even the X-Men disappear and other things.
So you're just trying to burn all the X points on purpose, or what?
No, there's so much more than that. So much more.
All right.
Come on, there's so much more.
All right.
We see Lilandra and them disappear. We see people in New York disappear. We see the X-Men disappear. So like it's starting to work.
Okay. I have a problem with this. Okay.
What was the name of Bishop's partner?
If you're
Bishop's
Shard.
Shard. Thank you.
Yeah.
So here's my problem. If you're being erased from time, it doesn't happen slow enough for you to comment on it. If you were being erased from time, you never existed. There's no time there for you to contemplate it.
That's not exciting from a visual standpoint of writing a TV show. You can't just have it just shows nothing, and it's like they were never there to begin with.
They're playing.
But I might come in a point under yours. We'll see.
But they did this through this whole show. Like even when in the episode where Cable and Bishop showed up with the time malarkey at the end of season 2 or somewhere in season 2, they were showing things disappearing from time, and like Bishop's like something's going on with time, and like it has to run back. So they do that all the time.
I have a problem with this. Yeah.
It's like I always make this joke about Back to the Future, and I have a lot of things to make fun of that movie. It's a classic and whatever, but like what the photo of him with his brother and sister that he's fading out of. Like, why would have they have
that's
taken
a problem?
Why would they have taken a photo
existed.
where the brother and sister are off center? Like they're over here and there's a big empty space there. Why would they have taken that photo if he was never there, right? Like,
Hollywood's real off base here. They really need to consult my science division over at Live Long and Podcast before they make these decisions.
My biggest joke about that series is if my wife had a boyfriend or a guy that she liked in college, and then in the future we have a kid that suddenly grows up to look exactly like that guy, I'm going to start wondering.
It was never your kid.
I'm going to start assuming that
there's no mystery.
It is not mine. So
no mystery there.
Nobody ever put those, like, the old George. The joke I think I made at the time was like somebody would ask a question, but not George McFly. He's too busy hiring the guy that tried to rape his wife to clean his car. Like in the future, he hires Biff to be his janitor. But in the past, Biff tried to rape his wife. I don't care how much time has passed or how much you want to emasculate him. I don't think I'd want that guy around in my life. Certainly not hiring him to give him money for a job. It's
George
so
McFly was an interesting dude.
Yeah, he sure was. I mean, even Crispin Glover is a pretty interesting dude. That guy, I think, is a vampire. I saw the new Guillermo del Toro series on Netflix that he's in. It's like a Cabinet of Curiosity. So every episode's like a new little horror mini movie. And he's in one based on an H.P. Lovecraft story called Pickman's Model. And he doesn't look hardly any different than he did 20 years ago when he was in Charlie's Angels. He almost looks exactly the same.
Yeah.
He and Paul Rudd drink from the same well, do they?
That's true. Crispin Glover should be in a Marvel movie. I don't know who he'd be, but he would be interesting. Definitely a space character or something.
Bad guy.
Like a weird space character. They made Jeff Goldblum the Collector, or not the Collector.
Make him one of the elders of the universe. He can be the traitor. You can
we haven't seen him yet.
No.
So Bishop's basically being told by Bender that someone's messing with time, which is Apocalypse that he kind of reveals here, because the pathway they're on is starting to disappear because whatever Apocalypse is doing. So Bishop, it's so funny because Bishop's wandering around for 3 episodes, so this guy's just been bedeviling him, and at no point did he ever tell him what's going on or why he's there. Until the very last minute when the plan is already in action. Obviously Bender knows what's going on or what's attempted to be going on and is kind of leading Bishop towards helping to stop it. But you could have given him some information before this, I guess. Anyway, so he knows Apocalypse is screwing with time. And he sees the glass cases with the psychic circling the beam of light. So he thinks this is part of Apocalypse's plan. So he just starts shooting them. And he knocks one down, which shatters, and it's Psylocke. Who he
questions
knows,
about
apparently.
That too. But
yeah, he's like, Psylocke, what are you doing here? How do you know
a lot
her?
of very strange things.
Yeah, he because he never met her before in the series, and she's from his distant past, ancient history to him. So it's just so funny. But anyway, she kind of lets him in that they're draining the psychics and it's all part of the project. So he starts shooting, and he needs to shoot the others down. So he starts shooting the other psychics out of their glass cases. And then as he's doing this, time starts reforming. So the things that disappeared start coming back
slowly. So you can comment on it.
Which is always interesting. It's is reality just like a computer? Can you just undo things? If you wipe something from existence, can you just take it out of the recycling bin and put it back where it was in time? Apparently so.
That would be
in the Nexus. You can.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
Actually,
it's good when you have Yeah. Go ahead.
You know what my answer to that would be?
I love at the end. So then the Apocalypse realizes that someone's messing with his plan. He grabs the horsemen, and they all come out after Bishop. Bishop's like 5 against 1, like those odds, and just starts shooting at them. Yeah. As all the cool space cowboy people do. We see Sinister and the Nasty Boys are still hanging out, and they get in a fight with Wolverine and Cable. But then
that's where we get this line.
2 small men, Sinister.
Yeah. He's like, what's one small man gonna do? And then Wolverine joins in on the action. We see Sinister realize the tables aren't in his favor, so he makes a portal. And I was gonna make this an X point, but I think I have enough stuff that I don't need to. As the nasty boys are running through their portal to disappear, Cable obviously shoots Gorgeous George. You see him get hit just before he goes through. Like, yeah, you do. And like, so
he's dead on the other side.
He could be. He very well could be. I mean, no one really seems to die in the show, but
yeah, because they go through portals just in time.
Yeah. So I guess during the fight,
traveled over 50 centuries of time to stop me. When will you learn it cannot be done?
Guess I'm a slow learner.
That's a pretty great line. You mentioned you had a favorite line from him in the series. Did we hit it yet?
No.
I'll
let you know when we do.
I don't have it yet. Oh wait, unless it's this one. This one's real.
Wait until it comes up. Let him tell us what it is, and we'll play it.
All right.
So Apocalypse circles back and tries to kill Cable. Cable manages to get his gun and shoot at that in that little exchange and shoot Apocalypse. And then the time thing splinters away, like the whole castle rips away, and there's just little pieces of it in time. Cable's running around, jumping off different pieces. They're just trying to survive in this sort of tempest. We see the Horsemen also trying to reform and attack them, but Magneto manages to dispatch them. And this is where the exchange happens. First, Magneto takes a hit, and Wolverine saves him and says, "Look at me saving you. What does that make me, Xavier?" And later on, when Wolverine takes a hit and is falling into time, Magneto flies and picks him up and says, which is also interesting. And this is just another stupid question, but doesn't Magneto fly because of manipulating gravity? Is there gravity in the nexus of time, or manipulating magnetic forces of the Earth? Sorry.
Yeah.
So, like, is there a magnetic forces in the nexus of time?
One would assume.
I mean, they're all standing, so they're not floating in space.
They'd be different.
I love that Wolverine gets like Wolverine falls on the rock that Apocalypse is standing on, and then we get this fun little Wolverine is ready to take on Apocalypse all by himself, which is a great little Wolverine moment. But then
I got that line there. I think is a good line there. Oh, is this one? Is it?
Come on, Mr. Change the Universe. Let's see if you can handle just one X-Man.
Yeah, exactly. So during when
I think is it? We must have passed your line now, Adam, because there's
there's one near the end. I think there's one near the end. So yeah,
you have traveled over 50 centuries of time to stop me.
We already did that one. Yeah. Okay. All right. Continue.
Well, what made the place fall apart was that first MacGuffin he had that was in the ceiling, which was kind of making this light beam that was all part of the process, got shot and shattered during the fight with Cable. But now that all this is happening, basically, Bishop gets in on the fight, and Apocalypse is still ready to take them all out, forming big guns on his hands. But then we are surprised by Xavier, and so all the psychics are free from their prisons. And they're all floating around and basically explain that now they're outside of time in this nexus where their powers are all encompassing. They have more power than even Apocalypse, and working together. And some of these people are obvious villains, so that's pretty funny to me. They are going to put things back the way they were, and because time will go back to normal, and Apocalypse never had his regeneration chamber, he will cease to exist, because he never could regenerate and wouldn't be at this point in time, which doesn't make a lot of sense for other reasons, but that's fine. So they reset time. Apocalypse is erased from the timeline completely itself, meaning essentially this is the end of him for this entire series, unless they find some, because this is they'd have to have a hell of a workaround to bring him back from that. I mean, they could do something with the end of this episode, but basically as the X-Men, everybody goes back to their own timeline. We see Bender being the only one left, and revealing, then saying he's going to have to work to put all this back together. And then he reveals his true form, which is that of Immortus, the one of Kang's alternates, their timelines, which is cool. But once again, if you didn't know anything if you just watched X-Men and just watched this cartoon and didn't read the comics, you have no idea who this character was or what he meant. We never saw him before.
It does show you that Bender was not what he was pretending to be.
But also, why would a guy with such gravitas as Immortus, who's just like the super, almost Shakespearean villain himself, be goofing around like a Robin Williams genie knockoff, just to get his point across?
Yeah, I don't get that.
But anyway, he got what he wanted. Apparently this was his time castle. This is sort of inferred just from what I'm guessing. And now he got it back. So he's going to work on rebuilding it and putting the next time back the way he had it. So
Thanks, Grey Malkin. Now take me back to a week before I left. To my son.
Why a week? Wouldn't a week complicate things? Because wouldn't there be two of him? Like, wouldn't the one that didn't go back into, like, wouldn't there be two of him still then?
Down here, this episode has some problems.
Yeah, I'm kind of okay with most of it. So we see all the X-Men reunite. Cyclops and Jean are back together, and she makes a comment about they don't have a lot of luck with their honeymoons. There's an incredible goof here. Did you notice the huge goof at the end of this episode?
No.
All right, I'll explain it at my X points. So Xavier asks Magneto if it felt wrong fighting on the side of good with the X-Men, and Magneto says, like, no, actually. Do you have this line? It's actually a pretty good line.
No, my favorite line happened just before Cable asked to be returned a week before.
Oh, what did he say?
Beast is congratulating them on saving everything.
Yeah.
Must feel nice. And Cable's like, I don't care.
Exactly. He does not care anymore. Yeah. By this episode, he
does say, he says something to him like, so you've defeated the ultimate evil.
Yeah.
How do you feel, or what do you think will happen next? He goes, I don't care. And it's like, because he posited earlier that evil has to exist, and if you destroy it. And it's funny because this reminds me very much of the last Halloween movie, which a lot of people hated, but Halloween
ends.
Yeah, I actually liked it too, but where they say evil doesn't die, it just changes shape. And that was sort of what Mike Myers represented, but also what Apocalypse is representing in this instance. So yeah, I like that. But anyway, he says that it feels so wrong fighting with the X-Men. He goes, no, Charles, if we could restart the world, maybe things could be different. And which is like a nice little line. He said if we could restart the world, it could be possible again to like fight with the X-Men. So that's nice. Actually, it's right here is where your line is. It's after that. He says, you've destroyed evil. Do you think the world has been changed? And he goes, right now, I don't care.
Here's the line for me from Apocalypse that's just killer delivery.
Do what you will, for I fear no one.
Like, it's such a simple line, but just the delivery, it's so good.
The delivery.
Like,
man. Very Apocalypse.
Yeah.
So
then Cable
so uninterested. He's just like, he's so uninterested with everyone who's trying to stop him. He's just like, yeah, whatever. Like, you're not a threat to me. Yeah,
Cable jumps back in Grey Malkin and goes back to his own time, and that's the end of the episode. And as far as the creators of the series go, they thought this was the end of the series.
Yeah, that's what a friend of the show, Eric Lee Wald, told us. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. And then we got a 5th season, for better or for worse.
But by the time they got to this point, Eric Lee Wald he's the showrunner. He was paying the artists' salaries.
No. Well, that's because the animation studio changed.
Saban didn't want to. Well, no, because Saban got cheap.
Yeah, well, the next season is a completely different group of animators. Yeah. The B team, as we call them. When sometimes some of their episodes scattered into this one, and we always say the A team and the B team. And
it's like, oh yeah, the B team was working tonight. Yeah,
on this one. Sometimes the faces, you can really tell it's the B team. All right, the end of the episode.
Sometimes the A team is just really good. But
for sure.
Moving on to
each of us will have to look into his own heart and decide.
Decide, fellas. You got to decide. So
ratings of 1 to 10 is the rating you give.
1 to 10. 1 to X. 1 to X.
Oh man. This is like the series finale, or sorry, the season finale.
Yeah, they thought it was series finale when they did it.
They thought it was series finale.
Yeah. So looking at it from that perspective, they were doing everything they could, I guess, to wrap it all up. I'm gonna give it an 8.
Yeah, that's fair. You know what? When we talked earlier, I told Davan I'd probably give it a 10, but upon closer inspection of this episode, I may have to go with an 8 or a 9 because it is really fun, but there is a lot of holes. but
I
like
had a
as
lot of
a
fun with it.
yeah, me too. And as
Yeah.
a whole, this 4-parter is pretty great. Like if you judged it as a whole, I'd probably give it a 9 or a 10.
Yeah.
Because it is pretty great. There's a lot of cameos. There's a lot of like cool throwbacks to old episodes and characters returning and getting a little bit of like what seems like a final with some of them. So yeah, I'm gonna say 9. I'll give it a 9.
Okay. But if I may justify my 8, I would just say
No, sure, go ahead.
As soon as Cable left Earth, essentially, none of those characters had anything else to do. I felt like Beast could have been super handy. So that to me is like a demerit point. And then
More Beast is always welcome.
Oh yeah,
more Beast is always welcome. You get some nice Shakespearean quotes out of that, and
Tennyson
could have matched. Could have matched wits with.
There was one episode where he like it's just in the middle of some big fight. He just quotes something and just goes Tennyson at the end. And it's just like well, you know, one of our favorite little moments where like why would you go to all that effort to like just to show off in the middle of a big battle or where nobody can even hear him. He's saying it to himself. Like
he has to acknowledge it to himself. That's what's hilarious.
Tennyson.
He gives credit where credit is due.
That's true.
He's a fellow who doesn't forget the cliff notes, you know.
He doesn't.
Or the references, I should say.
All right, what are you giving it, Davan?
Let's see. 8.
8. I feel like my 9's too high now. I'm changing.
No,
look. No, I think it's 8. I think
I'm changing mine to 7
8.
because I think you like this one better than I did.
Okay, that's fair. But I think 8 is probably more where I would fall.
All right, we'll go 3.
8's a high number. 80% on a test is pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah.
8 out of 10 is a good movie. Yeah. Like that's pretty.
I've probably only given out 3 or 4 10s this entire season or series.
I think the only really low one we both all gave was the Morlock Christmas one. That one was terrible. Really terrible. Oh my god. All right.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's a unanimous 8. Uncanny X points. All right. Well, we didn't tell you to come prepared, Adam, because that's part of this show. I try to tell Andre as little as possible as well. I like everyone to be unprepared. That's just how we do things around here. So, Andre, you go first. What's your X point?
Well, the first one that I was going to mention is the that blunder I said, that goof. So after they're back, after they've restored time and they're back where they all should be, when Xavier says to Magneto, "Did it feel so wrong, Magnus fighting alongside the X-Men?" Xavier is standing beside Magneto. He's not in a chair.
Is it in the astral plane?
No, they're back on Earth outside of the school. He's obviously standing and not in a chair. And he moves his hands and everything like it's very much a goof.
Well, he's not paralyzed of the arms.
No, he's standing. Like he's not in a chair.
Yeah.
They're standing right beside each other.
Okay, that's interesting.
Very clearly a mistake.
All right, well, I'll go next, I guess, with one of
Good
these
catch.
points here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, here's one. Well, you already teased it. They're showing a bunch of scenes from like things that are being erased from time. Like they show Mojo for some reason.
Yep.
And they show the dinosaurs. They show,
which could be the
Columbus.
Savage Land or just the dinosaurs. It's kind of hard to tell.
Yeah, they show Columbus, because it's definitely like one of his ships. You can tell, and they also show Hiroshima. So like,
yeah, you do see a nuclear explosion. That's right. Yeah,
you do. So it's interesting the things they just like chose to show being erased. Yeah, and they show a Neanderthal. Maybe what's a Neanderthal? A caveman, anyway. But if they erase the Neanderthals, that screws up the 3 of us anyway, because everyone of European descent has Neanderthal DNA. So some of our DNA is getting wiped out there, fellas.
Well, I mean, all of existence was getting wiped out, so we'd be gone anyway. Last I checked, I'm part of all of existence. So, yeah, my point, I guess I'll steal this one before you get to it, is all of the cameos of the psychics. Quite a cavalcade of psychic
You're
cameos
not
here.
gonna burn all the cameos in one X point, are you?
Sure am. We got Rachel Summers in there. We got
And I got
Strife.
nothing. We're
Strife
going to
is kind
Adam
of
next.
cool. We got Strife, Emma Frost, briefly, Mastermind, Mesmero, Oracle, Games Master, Karma. They list Shadow King here, but I don't remember seeing him.
I didn't
Nor
see
do
Shadow
I.
King either.
Was Typhoid Mary a psychic? Because she was in
Yeah.
one of them. Okay.
I saw her.
She has,
Yeah.
I
she has
wondered that
telepathy
myself.
and pyrokinesis.
You see Gremlin very briefly, which is a pretty obscure character, like Gargoyle's son.
Mhm.
Oh my god, is that who that was?
That little thing with the like
that's
it looked
gargoyles.
like little Charlie Brown looking dude with the head.
There's a guy who looked like Ola from the Green Lantern, but obviously
I was going to say that
it's my gargoyle hero clip.
Oh, Gargoyle is cool.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, there was one that's obviously looks like Ganthet or one of the Green Lantern Guardians. It looks exactly like one, and I'm pretty sure it's not a Marvel
One of them
character
looks
I'm
like
familiar with.
one of the Kree recorders as well.
Oh, possibly. So yeah, a who's who, if you will, of obscure psychic characters in the Marvel universe. Yeah,
Well, I
thought
think you might have forgot a couple.
Go ahead,
So
then
I'm
make a
gonna
next point.
Try to follow up with my X points. Did you mention Rachel? Rachel's clearly there.
I did. She was the first one, yeah.
Okay. And you mentioned Weingard and Mesmero.
I didn't say
But
Weingard.
Did you?
I forgot about him.
Oh yeah, Weingard's there. Mastermind. He's definitely there. But here's someone who would like. I don't know. One of those characters looks like Dr. Druid to me. The Avenger. Dr. Druid. Now he has a lot of powers. Maybe he's magical. Like, is Doctor Strange psychic? No, but he could probably read your mind somehow if he wanted to.
But isn't Strife like Apocalypse from a different timeline?
No, he's a complete clone of Cable.
Yeah. Or sorry, that's what I meant. Cable of a different timeline. He's just a clone of Cable?
He says he's the original Cable.
Okay.
So that's the fun there.
Man, comics are so fun. Like after centuries, like not centuries, but really like eight decades of comic continuity, you have like to try to explain something to somebody now about like where someone comes from in any like Marvel's a little easier to keep track. DC is like with all their crises like a gong show, but where it's like this guy's like how many versions of Cable are there? There's Cable, there's Strife, there's X-Man, there's
mostly just those three.
Okay. It's still a lot. It'd be so weird living in a world where there's another version of you running around, like a younger version of you or an evil version of you, or like imagine like when the X-Men, like that Bendis story where there's like a teenage version of yourself in the same world as you, just running around being a superhero, like Cyclops. You just run into your teenage self.
All new X-Men.
Yeah. So strange. Okay, where's my next X point?
Let's go to Adam. You got anything?
Okay. Yeah, Adam.
I think anything. I think I mentioned it throughout the episode. Like any little tidbits that I noticed. My thing was the cameos as well. Like I said, that's the type of stuff that I was always drawn to when I would watch the show. Is they would show you something of a character that is from another part of the Marvel universe or the X-Men universe, and that's what would catch my eye. So that's what caught my eye about this episode. I didn't catch any bloopers, to be honest. So I don't think I have any good X points. So I'm sorry.
That's all right.
That's fair.
So my next
at now?
I'll do my third one, I guess. This episode was originally intended as a series finale, as you mentioned earlier. But then last minute, Fox ordered more episodes, which the team didn't think was going to happen. And because of that, this is the last episode in the series with the original animation style. This is when
they all had already found new jobs.
Yeah,
like the showrunner's gone. He found a new job. The Larry Houston, the director, he found a new job. He was over working at like G.I. Joe or like something. Like a lot of them ended up on some of the other Marvel properties, like running like Silver Surfer and some of those other cartoons. But like, they all left. They all found new jobs. They told they were fired.
Wow. It's like, you're unfired. Come back.
You're unfired.
We need you. There's still money to be made.
Don't make us use the B team for the whole thing.
Yep, I wish they did. So
they did.
Yeah, last episode.
Yeah.
All right,
Well, what do
back
I
to you,
got
Dan.
left? Since you like, well, maybe made so many X points a single X point. Did you say Moondragon?
Yes,
Moondragon was there.
that's
Okay.
true.
Oh my God, I got nothing.
It's all right.
All right. Well, you know what? I'm pretty much out of X points because I rolled a bunch of them into a single one too. I had 3 different X points. One was Columbus, one was Hiroshima, and one was like dinosaurs. And I made them all 1 X point.
Well,
So I got nothing.
according to my resources, this episode is the final appearance in the series of Cable, Bishop, Shard, Archangel, Psylocke, and the Nasty Boys.
All right. Well, you know what? Here's an X point because so yeah. So like they threw the whole basket into a Cable thing. Like they thought the series was ending, and they're like, let's just make it all about Cable, which is
It kind of wraps up.
strange
It
considering
wraps
like
up.
they didn't wrap up all these characters they've been building this entire series. It didn't try to like wrap up the love triangle between Wolverine and Cyclops, or like
I think that's already
all
been
the.
dealt with.
Oh well,
Like
maybe.
Wolverine did say
But
when they were getting married again that he had just as long as he treats her well, he just wants Jean to be happy. But we didn't like the for being the last 4 episodes of what they assumed was the entire series. Jubilee has no lines. Gambit has no lines.
yeah,
Rogue has no
yeah,
lines.
Rogue exactly. They threw it
I don't
all.
think
They're like,
Rogue's
let's
even
do
in
a
the fight
Cable
at all
story.
in this one.
Neither
I
is
love when that
Gambit.
happens. They're like Rogue's off on another mission. It's like reality is being like, what other mission is more important? Like all of reality can be
Yeah,
erased.
yeah. We even asked Lenore's on when she was on the show if she like went on vacation or something because they're like we're in a point where they've like written you out of like 8 episodes in a row and they just keep talking about your secret mission and then they never tell you what that secret mission is. It's like, oh, Rogue's still on that mission. They just like drop that into every episode.
And like
You never get
Cyclops
to
is
see
only
that.
in like 4 episodes in this entire season.
Oh man, they totally neglect Cyclops.
And he wasn't really in this one at all, and barely in the last one. Like,
But
I
that's
don't
the
think
thing. They found out, other than Morph, who was incredibly popular, they found out who was all the most popular characters and threw them into this episode. So they're like, oh, the popular villains are like Mystique, Apocalypse, and Sinister. Throw them in there. People love Wolverine. You got to get him in there. People love Cable and Bishop. Like, but that is strange though. Actually, never mind. I take that back because people loved Rogue and Gambit. They were probably the most popular in this show. They're not even in this 4-parter, really.
not really. And Jean Grey's barely in it. Like, but like as far as like trying to they kind of have what seems to be a sort of final battle, but a slightly off panel between Wolverine and Sabretooth. They kind of wrap up Cable's fight with Apocalypse. That gives them reasons for Magneto and Xavier to seemingly bury the hatchet. Like it does tie up a good amount of things in a decent little bow. Although I'm curious what happened when Bishop got back to his timeline, because every time it's like the 3rd time Bishop's been back screwing around with time, and every time he shows up he always goes back to his own time, and Forge is like, it's still fucked up, you gotta go back. You're like,
and Forge is always just like, well, if you did change things I'd never know in the
I'd
first
never
place.
know, but it's still messed up, so you got to do something
well, I
else.
guess I'll listen to what you're saying, because
he's like Sisyphus, like it just never ends. He just pushes that boulder uphill for eternity. Every time he goes back to his timeline, it's never right.
I almost think they were doing the Sisyphus thing with him on purpose, but
yeah, it's kind of like maybe as a tongue-in-cheek gag.
With Bishop and Cable, I always forget, but do they exist in the same future, just years apart, or they're from 2 alternate futures?
No. Bishop is the future where Sentinels fuck everything up. Cable is from the future where Apocalypse does.
Okay.
But they're both very like why
Cable's way later. Bishop's like 80 years ahead of us, whereas Cable's like 200 years.
But we're supposed to be on the same timeline, right?
No.
Okay.
No.
But then why would they keep interacting? Like, because they're 2 separate. Like,
that's because they're both time travelers, I guess.
Interesting. It's so weird.
Like they're both leaving their own times to anyway, branch timeline theory. Watch the Loki series; it'll explain it better than I will.
Well, I watched it. It's pretty good. I'm excited to see the second season, but I guess we'll probably have to wait a while on that with the writer's strike. And I guess Marvel's probably waiting to find out what's going to happen with Jonathan Majors' law case before they proceed with having him around. So,
well, they just arrested his accuser, so that's probably looking good in his favor.
Yeah, I heard that she might be charged too for something. So maybe it'll go back to like I don't want to make judgments about whatever people do in their personal life. I mean, obviously, if he did something wrong and illegal and violent, then that's 100% on him. But it'd be a real shame. It'd be, as a comic fan, it'd be a shame if he didn't get to be Kang anymore because he's so good. But I would happily not want to see him anymore if he did do what he's accused of doing. It's just he's a good actor, so it'd be neat if he got to hang around. We'll see.
Mm.
But obviously, I don't endorse him if he is guilty of the crimes he's accused of.
I'm gonna say that was 10x points. I have no idea
Sure,
if it was.
seemingly so. I think it's pretty goddamn close. I must say.
Let us know. Let us know how many.
If you're counting, you're missing the point of the show.
Hey, check this out.
Hey, check this out. This is our comic reminiscences and recommendations segment. Well, I usually go first because mine usually has something to do with the episode.
Does it this time?
This time, well, no, not really. But I will say, since we saw Strife, go check out Executioner's Song. It's kind of the first big, it came with all the trading cards and like the sealed packages.
Do they reveal who he is when he first appears, or does that come much later? Like, do you know that he's a Cable clone in that story?
It happened. The reveal is in that story, as I recall.
Okay.
He showed up before that story, but like that was the big Strife story. But no, here's what I'm gonna say because it's on my list. Actually, I haven't read this, but I'm gonna recommend it to myself. The New Mutants, Dead Souls.
Who, pray tell, draws that?
I don't know, but he's a young upstart. He's just quite good. I don't know. I'm digging it though. I want to check it out more. Look, this is the New Mutants plus Guido. I'm there, man. Like I'm often teased by Andre about my love of Guido.
I just think the name Guido seems weird to me.
Oh man, he's a Guido if there was ever a Guido. It's him.
If there ever was a Guido, it's him.
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like that's like
Magic, one of my favorite
Italian
characters
people.
ever. Yeah, and he is Italian, but that's not the point.
I mean, it is if it's
I don't
offensive.
think that's the point.
Okay.
It's
Well,
his name.
I hope you enjoy it.
Well, I will, I think, because I love the New Mutants and I love your art, man. That's
carry on one sec. I'll break.
That's one of the best Guidos I've ever seen. Gotta tell you. And Magic, like all of it. That's solid stuff, man. And honestly, like drawing the Ninja Turtles is its own like art form, and you nail it, man. Because they're also like, well, they're also similar, and it's very easy to make. I think it could be very easy to make them uninteresting because of that.
Yeah.
But so they almost have to be very kinetic and that kind of things, and I think you nail that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, man. So I'm looking forward to reading this. Written by Rosenberg. I forget his first name.
Matthew. Yes.
I've read a few things by him, so I'm looking forward to that. So that's my recommendation. Everyone go check out New Mutants Dead Souls. I'm gonna check it out.
I second that recommendation.
Yeah. What else would you recommend they read of yours, Adam? Like if you had to pick from your own catalog, what would you suggest?
From my own catalog?
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, I would recommend people check out Godzilla Rivals versus King Ghidorah because I wrote and drew it.
Oh wow!
So it's the first thing that I've written, and obviously I'd like to write more, but as it is, I think it's pretty cool.
Oh, I'm checking that out too. Yeah. Top of the pile. That's what I say. All right, Andre, what do you got?
I can't hear Andre. Can you?
Sorry.
Nope.
I muted. I had to run because I just heard a huge bang, like something large fell over. And we have a kitten we've had for about 3-4 months now.
Right.
And she has a tendency, there's like a bug that yes, that's her name. If there's a bug or something in the house, she goes nuts, like trying to get it. So I feel like she probably saw. Yeah. So she knocked over the fan in the living room. It just sounded so I wanted to go make sure she didn't knock over the TV or something important. So yes, I often try to pick something that's relevant.
It's poetic.
Oh, I have to try to pick something that's relevant to the episode.
Sure.
So last episode, what did I pick for a comic? Shoot, I can't remember now, but it was something time travel related. So this time I was like, I looked through my comic library and I was like, what can I grab that'd be fun and time travel related? And I decided to go with Evan Dorkin's Bill and Ted's excellent comic book from the 90s.
Oh,
cool. Do you remember when Dorkin was doing that book?
I do not actually. No.
Yeah, it was like 12 issues, I think it was, or the whole run, or 10 or something, which is super fun. Like Evan, I mean, if you like Evan Dorkin, which I do, him kind of lending his sense of humor and his art style to Bill and Ted just seemed like an obvious choice. This is the archive collection that has all of it in that Boom put out. I think Marvel did it originally. I'm not 100% sure if it was a Marvel comic or why Boom would have the rights to it to be able to release it. But it could be because the box of the comic person is blacked out, and that looks like a Marvel layout.
It does actually.
So it must have been a Marvel book that they just didn't let them include the logo.
Does it operate as a sequel to Bogus Adventure or Bogus Journey?
Yeah, it carries on with them after, actually right on after Bogus Journey, if I recall correctly. Well, I believe the first one is a movie adaptation of Bogus Journey.
Oh, okay.
And then it carries on from there, which is with further storylines and all this other stuff. So getting involved with all these other craziness. So it just, after the adaptation, just become Bill and Ted's excellent comic book and goes off from there. But I'm guessing the success of the comic series is what led towards them getting their own series. But often there are things in. So are you a fan of the movies? I assume you probably are.
I am, yeah.
So there's like a cut scene from the movies where like the crazy bunny from hell and other things come back trying to stop them from getting to the big thing at the end. And there's like the big bunny's like a demon that's on the hood of their van. And there's a big thing that got scrapped from the movie, but that's in the comics. So it's kind of, you can tell they probably drew it from the film script and not they hadn't seen the movie yet.
Yeah.
Because also Death is depicted as being a skull in a hood the entire time. He doesn't look like he does in the with William Sadler in the series. So
that's pretty fun though.
But yeah, it's a fun book, and if you can track down this volume, I've had it for a while now, so I'm not sure if it's still out there in the wild. But check it out. Davan, I just suggested Evan Dorkin's Bill and Ted's comic book from the 90s.
Sorry about that, fellas. I also have cats, and
are both. Is there a crazy full moon? Oh, they're going to tell me your cats did something. I was like, is there a crazy full moon or something making our cats crazy?
No. Oh, my cats are always crazy. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
cool. Bill and Ted's excellent comic book. Check it out.
It's pretty great.
Well, now we move on to everyone's favorite segment, at least Andre's.
You don't like the movie? Change the channel.
Where's your remote taking us tonight, Andre?
Well, for Adam and who's going to initiate it, my remote is where I suggest a movie. Davan makes me pick one from the 90s or before. So, because I was going to suggest one that's an extra suggestion, two tiny ones. One is a movie called Synchronic, which is by Justin Benson and Adam, or I always get their names wrong. Benson and Moorhead are their last names. They do these cool little indie movies with small budgets that are really good. They did one called Synchronic with Jamie Dornan and I blanked. The guy that plays Falcon, Anthony Mackie, about an illegal street drug that actually if your brain, if your pineal gland is still developing, if you're young, taking this legal street drug displaces you in time, and you wind up somewhere else that isn't where you were. Mackie's a cop, and his partner's daughter goes missing, and Mackie's trying to find out what happened to her, and eventually discovers she took this drug. He has a brain tumor, which is slowly killing him, but also makes him able to take the drug and use it in a similar way. So he ends up doing experiments with it, trying to go back to where and find his partner's daughter and return her to her timeline. It's a low budget film, but it's very interesting and very good. Benson and Moorhead were the showrunners for the Moon Knight series on Disney Plus.
It was excellent.
Yeah, they because
Quite
they
good.
did all these really low budget movies that were critically very well received that Disney noticed and they got that series. So I was going to suggest that one, which is only came out a couple years ago, but it's fantastic. And the other one I was going to suggest is last night I watched Wes Anderson's Asteroid City, which is very, very good. If you like Wes Anderson,
Oh, you did you?
It's
Why don't
fantastic.
you explain to the ex-goons why that was happening instead
That's
of
because that
beer?
was my plan of going to the city to begin with, and I was hoping to visit you after that, but there wasn't time. But the movie I'm going to suggest, which is one of my favorites, and I bought when I was in Halifax yesterday, is The Maltese Falcon, which is a classic. And
When
if
do
you
you
like,
have time to do that instead of having
if you
beers
like
with the
film
guy?
noirs,
What
it's
a
a
guy,
great one.
ex-goons.
Will you grow up?
Anyway.
But it's if you like film noir, which I do, it's the quintessential one. But also, if you do enjoy it, I highly suggest you read the Dashiell Hammett novel that it's based on, and any of Dashiell Hammett's books, which are all great noir-y detective stories, particularly Red Harvest. Read that one as well.
Well then, let's move along.
It's got great Humphrey Bogart and Peter Lorre performances, which is always fun from that old time period.
Oh, Peter Lorre, eh? Yeah.
Perhaps you better take over from here.
I was going to say,
I will, but I'm going to be quick. I'm just going to tell everybody, go ahead with your Peter Lorre.
Go. Oh yeah. Peter Lorre always makes me think of whenever they make fun of him on the Looney Tunes. You know, there's always like some little scientist who's like, "I am helping to my experiment." Like it's obvious them making fun of him, but it's if you didn't know his performances from like M or this, you would have missed it. But I guess Casablanca is where most people recognize him from. But this would be the other movie that him and Humphrey Bogart are in together.
I'm just going to tell everyone, go listen to Marcus Miller. If you like bass, go listen to Marcus Miller. Just do it up.
I do like bass.
Loving You is a good album. Pretty sure that's what the album's called. Check out the album Marcus. That's a really good album too. But honestly, you can't go wrong. Listen to anything by Marcus Miller. Best bass player who ever lived. Yeah, check it. And he never loses the groove.
That's important.
Like you can get mathematical with music just to show your prowess, but do that without losing the groove. Few people can do that, and Marcus Miller's one of them. So check it out. Now we have a new segment here on the show. You bet we do. You bet we do. Hold on one sec. Well, no, that's not the one. Let's go with this is the theme. I don't have a theme definitely chosen for this one. Let's go with
If you're unfamiliar, Adam, all of this music are from the show. That one is from the Dazzler episode, the one where they.
No, it's not. That's from the Japanese theme.
Oh, that is the Japanese theme. Okay, what was the one from the Dazzler episode? There's one we had from that too.
That was.
I can't remember, but anyway,
I don't think I kept that one.
Oh, okay, that one's pretty great.
This is where we add them it up. It's basically a recommendation segment, but it's like what is something Adam likes? If somebody wanted to Adam it up, what could they do?
Yeah. Well, like
the full
enjoy
Adam.
the things that I enjoy.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly.
This is well, all I ever do is
I'm
draw.
prepared. I know.
All I ever do is draw. But lately, I have been on something of a UFO kick.
Ooh.
And so I've been just listening to podcasts on UFOs. Can't really recommend any specific one. I'm just kind of grazing it all. And
have you watched Nope, the Jordan Peele movie yet?
I have. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, me too.
So I mean, that's worth a watch.
Are you familiar with the podcast works of Jean-Michel Gaudier?
No.
Check that out.
All right, I'll check that out. But as far in like along with that, the current comic Blue Book by James Tynion the fourth or fifth.
Who's the third, isn't it?
Is it the third?
I think it's the guy that did all the Batman books for a while.
Yeah, I think it's the fourth.
Okay, maybe we're wrong.
But the writer creator of Something is Killing the Children.
Oh yeah.
And Michael Oeming is the illustrator.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
I love him so much.
So it's it's a story in that realm and has been enjoyable. The comics that I've been reading is I've been reading Arcade Kings, drawn and written by Dylan Burnett, it's really wonderful. That's from Image Skybound, so that's really really fun and very different from Blue Book. Gosh, I haven't really been doing too much else besides drawing. Although this past weekend, my family and I did watch the Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves.
Oh, how was it?
It was really, really fun. We all really liked it.
It was fun.
I've been meaning to watch it. I just haven't got around to it yet.
Yeah, it was super fun. It's definitely a good time. So I recommend that.
Yeah, it's on. I think it just showed up on Prime, which means I mean you get to go watch it, but I haven't got around to it.
Yeah.
On Prime, you never know. You might go in there and they're like, "Hey, for $7, you can actually press play." It's just like, what? Prime.
Yeah, no, this one's available to subscribers, so you're good.
Yeah, which I am. Good. So I'm very excited.
Hey, look who I found coming to join the party.
Glad y'all decided to join the party.
I love watching people that don't know the format of this show just like be amazed with all the ridiculous
endless segments
we have.
Is that
it amazed Andre for the first few episodes?
Is that what?
That music?
No. During the first season, the end credits had those like spinning like 3D action figures. Remember those? And then their like powers would light up.
Yeah.
That's the music that would play during that.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
wow. Like,
it was pretty cool, actually.
Got rid of that. I loved that outro, and then they got rid of it. But yeah, I liked it. Yeah, well, I wanted to say about Party Like It's Night, Crossing 97. This is where we talk about, the new series and stuff like that. But they're releasing action figures for the new series already.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
we did. Yeah.
One minor scoop might be, do we know that Mr. Sinister is back this season? Because in her interview, Christopher did say that he was part of the recording of this season.
Yes, they said he's the main villain of the series along.
Oh, did they? Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he's the main guy. Which that's why I mentioned like he had to be. Like John Colicos died, there was no apocalypse. He was the next
I mean, essentially, it'd be hard for them to bring him back. He did disappear he's erased from time. So it'd be a tough sell to explain. Yeah, how'd they bring him back?
Oh yeah, that too. That's true. But yeah, and there's so much they didn't really do a whole lot with Sinister as far as what they could do. He was just sort of obsessed with Morph and Jean and Scott, but there's so much more they can do with that character.
For sure.
Well, I guess we'll skip the games for tonight because we're running a bit long. But we do have this.
All I need now is for you to contact your students, Professor.
Yeah, sorry, Adam, if you didn't know what you were getting yourself into, but if there's not at least 10 segments, it's not X-rated.
Your homework is to go watch. Next week we have an interview with Christopher Britton, who does the voice of Mr. Sinister. So that'll be next week's episode. We recorded that.
It's awesome. We've already done.
Recorded that earlier today. It was pretty great. So that'll be your episode for next week. It won't be live. It was pre-recorded, but it's still new content. So enjoy that. But your homework is in 2 weeks' time to watch the first episode of season 5 and what I believe to be a slow descent into terribleness of the season 5 of the show is what everybody says. It's so bad. So,
well, you know what's funny? The first episodes of this coming season is the Phalanx Covenant, and for me, that's when 90s comics started to fall away into like horribleness. That's when I stopped collecting comics. The Phalanx Covenant came out. I bought they were all very fancy, shiny covers.
I remember those covers. Yeah.
I bought a couple of those, and and I read them, and I'm like, I might be out. I don't know. It's just more flash than substance. So we'll see.
Yeah, it was a weird time in the 90s because it was when everybody was getting other versions of them. Like Spider-Man wasn't Spider-Man, he was Ben Riley. Batman wasn't Batman, he was Jean-Paul Valley. Like they were just
Who
just
the
throwing
hell is
everything at
Jean Paul Valley? I've never even heard that name before.
Oh, come
Anyway,
on. He was
that's where I
Batman.
haven't.
Azrael.
Oh,
He
that's
was
crazy.
Azrael, then became Batman after Bane broke his back.
Yeah.
So I know there's a whole other
You
world
think-
of comics outside of the Marvel universe, Davan. You got to open yourself up to sometimes.
Who's got the time?
Yeah, that's a good point. So it's a very strange time, I must say, but
So we'll see.
It does seem to herald the kind of shifting of the guard, as it were. Right around the time all the lenticular covers came out is when things started getting weird. But yeah, so go watch The Phalanx Covenant Part 1, Episode 1 of Season 5.
Right. What is the top 3 best episodes of the season? Oh, I can't think of that off the top of my head. We'll get back to you on that one, Sam. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Adam.
Yeah, Adam.
Oh, no, it's my pleasure.
Anytime you want to come, if you want to come back for a terrible Season 5 episode, you're more than welcome.
Sure.
Yeah.
What is Jubilee's?
Hope we didn't
Jubilee's Fairy
segment
Tales?
you to death. Jubilee's Fairy Tale Theater.
I'll look ahead at what some of these episodes
Well, the
are.
Old Soldiers one might be all right. That's the one with Wolverine and Captain America.
Yeah. The World War II story, yeah.
I can think of one that might be fun to return for, but
let us know and we'll get you on.
Yeah. We'll definitely do that. Well, our just recent interview guest, Christopher Britton, certainly recommended Descent, the 2-parter that explains Mr. Sinister's backstory. But
Right. Which does seem interesting, which I am excited to see because I have no memory of that episode whatsoever. So be nice to experience the Sinister origin, especially since he's going to play so much in the next season. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. You can support the show at patreon.com/X-Men Review Show. I'll put some more merch up there soon. Andre's got some Xavier was right and some Magneto was right things I just have to put up there.
I want to get one of those Magneto's right shirts. They're pretty cool.
Yeah, they are pretty cool, aren't they?
I feel my psychic energy being drained.
Oh my God, I'm almost done. Contact us at xmenreviewshow@gmail.com. Follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and the Twitches. You can find our audio-only version wherever you get your podcasts. We're everywhere, all over the world. We've had listeners on every continent except Antarctica.
Oh, man, we got to get some Antarctica people.
I know
they're out there.
I know we do.
They're out there and they need something to listen to.
They're outpost scientists. That's what they are. And you please like, review, and subscribe. And we are, of course, a proud member of these United Federation of Podcasts. Do a quick rundown. There's us, the X-Rated, the X-Men Animated Review Show. There's the very Federation itself. There's Hold Up a Movie Podcast. Our next episode is on boats, Das Boot, Captain Ron, and In the Heart of the Sea. We'll review those.
That's quite an eclectic
Supermated
mix.
Brothers podcast. Oh man, Captain Ron, so good. Anyway, Supermated Brothers podcast. They review reality shows, and we also do the Mary Mater Marvel Society over there, where we review the MCU content. Well, the next up will be, of course, Secret Invasion. We just did the Spider-Verse there, which was amazing. Check that out if you haven't seen it. And there's Trivial Debates. Good, nice Trivial Debate show. Andre's been on there. I've been on there. I don't know. You might be due up for hosting duty soon, Andre. I don't know.
Oh, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Speaking of Spider-Verse, that reminds me of that so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a new episode just dropped Monday. That was with Tara Odebear, who is I met at the East Coast Comic Expo, who is an
super cool. I just
Indigenous comic creator that does some really cool projects, children's books based around Indigenous stories. Same with cartoons and a movie she's working on right now. So very cool, great conversation. Very excited to see that. Actually, it's what I can't remember the language she said it was in, but it's wholly in a Indigenous language. The entire movie, which is pretty cool. So it does sound like it's going to be pretty neat. I'm excited to see that one when it comes out. Oh, and I don't know who the next one is yet. I have an idea, but I will announce that once I have it set.
You can go back and check past episodes with guests like Adam Gorham.
Yeah, great episode with Adam. Actually, is really fun.
It was.
Yeah, and
if you want to hear my almost killing Stan Lee story, go back and listen to the one with me.
all you had to do was wait for time. I had to do is wait for time to finish the job.
Yeah. Yikes. And there's also the Hellbound podcast with Alex Blackburn and Michael Chan. And of course, we can't forget Live Long and Podcast. We have endless Star Trek content. We review shows over at the Command Division. We do Science Division stuff. I have endless shows over there. Check it out. We also have First Contact interviews where I hope to interview the wife of our most recent guest on this show, Christopher Britton, on there.
So I inferred from our interaction that she played a Klingon on Star Trek.
Yeah, man, she plays B'Etor. She's one of the best Klingons.
Oh, really?
That's cool. B'Etor. Yeah, she's the Klingon who tries to seduce everybody.
Oh,
she's great.
On what series?
TNG and DS9.
Oh, well, I would have seen her on DS9.
They're in the First Contact movie as well.
Oh, cool. Okay, I would have seen her on DS9. I love that show. I watched all of it.
Oh yeah, they show up in at least one episode of that.
Cool.
And of course, the Cuters of Trek. Check out my audio podcast there. That's it. Where can people check out what's going on with you, Adam? What's fresh in the world of Adam?
I'm not allowed to say what's next.
No!
I just
that happens a lot.
Can you say who it's with?
No.
Okay.
No,
that's not true. I'm doing it. I'm maybe doing a little too much, but there are a couple of things that I can say. One of them is I recently drew a couple issues of Star Wars Darth Vader over at Marvel, issues 33 and 34. And I'll be returning to that title later on this year. So you can look forward to that if you read Star Wars and if you liked what I did. I'm also working on a horror comic with R.L. Stine over at Boom.
Oh, that's awesome.
Wow.
Called it's another story in his Stuff of Nightmare series, and ours is called Red Murder. And I'm doing some neat stuff with it because there is it's about a comic artist who creates he makes a comic that gets turned into a movie. The movie franchise becomes super successful, and he doesn't. And so at a convention that's celebrating the umpteenth anniversary of this character, the character, which is sort of like a slasher, a horror movie slasher character, when you know it, shows up at the convention and people start getting murdered.
Nice.
So the interesting thing about this project for me personally is that I'm because there is the comic that I'm drawing, but then there's also the comic within the comic. So I'm trying my hand at a different art style within the book. So that's really fun, and that's coming out in September from Boom. So you have that to look forward to.
Oh, awesome!
Yeah, awesome.
Sounds super cool.
Time.
Do you have how much interaction?
Red goosebumps growing up.
How much interaction with Stein do you have? Like, is it do you talk with him or?
No, I mean I hear from him through my editorial team, and they always refer to him as Bob, and and so they'll say Bob loves this, and Bob approves. Getting an email that says Bob approves is pretty gratifying.
That's super cool.
Is he a real guy or is he a company of people? Like was the rumor back in the day? People were always like, "There's too many Goosebumps books. R.L. Stine is 10 people."
As far as I know, he's a real guy.
And there's only one of them.
Working real hard.
Yeah.
And
they never say that about Stephen King. It's just like R.L. Stine can't write Goosebumps, but Stephen King can churn out 1,000 books a year. Like, come on now.
Stephen King stealing from X-Men, the animated series.
That's right.
Well, it's easy to write books when you're stealing.
Yeah.
I was going to say famed X-Men thief Stephen King. But also, I just wanted to say in person, thanks, Adam, I watched Adam using his iPad Pro at the East Coast Comic Expo. And because of me being so impressed with what he was able to do with it, I did need a new tablet, so I decided to get one myself, and it's amazing. I'm going to be it's really sparked my creativity and wanting to like really do some more comics again because it's so easy. I sat at my deck and drew like this picture of myself, and it was just great. I could just sit on a deck out under a tree and do some amazing art. Not to say that my art's amazing, but like amazingly fun to put together art.
It was a very nice portrait you.
Thank you.
You made.
Thank you.
I'm glad that you're getting into it. It'll.
It's been a long time since I've done any comic work, and I miss it dearly, and I got to carve out some time to do it. So.
There you go. Well, this should make it easier.
It's super. Like I can't get. I have a drawing tablet I plug into my computer, and I was getting used to that. But like this is like that times 10, and I don't need to sit like because it would be like another monitor, so I'd have to like go back and forth and mess with Photoshop and then do the layers. But this is so much simpler. And it just streamlines it all so easily that and it's like $18 for the app. It's insane. It's super good.
Yeah, it's an affordable app, and it's so. Like I was saying, like it takes everything that like you would need from Photoshop, but simplifies it, makes it user friendly.
Yep.
So,
oh my god, that sounds like what I need.
And it even just like you can even just pick a comic page, and it'll give you the dimensions for the comic page like instantly to like start doing the art.
Wow.
So like it's super cool.
It's super duper.
Yeah, it does sound awesome. All right, well, let's get out of here, everybody. Thanks for joining us, Adam.
Thanks
for taking too much of your time, and definitely come back if you want in season 5.
And let us know when they announce your new project so we can pimp it.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, we love promoting our friends of the show.
Well, thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks again.
All
right.
Good night.
Bye.
Time, my friends, is the greatest power in existence. Unfortunately for you and your universe, time has run out.
Oh no! Catch you next time.